Fraud. My former boss had typed that single word into a 1-star online review of my business, then added that I took customers' money without delivering honest work. I read it over and over at 3 a.m., sitting alone in my kitchen while the light inside the refrigerator spilled across the hardwood floor because I'd opened the door without realizing it. My coffee had gone cold hours earlier. A late-night television host laughed somewhere in the background, but the sound felt distant, unreal, as if it belonged to someone else's life. My phone buzzed with a notification that another potential client had canceled a consultation after seeing the review. I closed my eyes. The review wasn't written by a disappointed customer. It was written by the man who had once signed my paychecks, and he knew every word was a lie. My mind kept returning to the day I resigned. His office overlooked downtown Chicago, glass walls, expensive artwork. The kind of place meant to impress clients before anyone even spoke. Richard Lawson leaned back in his leather chair while tapping a pen against his desk. "You're making a mistake," he said. "I've made my decision. You'll be back." I smiled politely. "I don't think so." He chuckled as though I'd told him a joke. No one survives in this industry without connections. At the time I thought it was arrogance. Looking back, maybe it was a warning. I had worked for Richard's consulting company for almost 7 years. Long hours. Endless board meetings. Weekend conference calls that interrupted family dinners. I believed loyalty mattered because that's how my parents had raised me. Then one afternoon I discovered something that never sat right with me. A client had been billed for research our team had never completed. When I quietly asked accounting whether there had been a mistake, the invoice disappeared from the system by the next morning. Richard later called me into his office. "Some things don't concern you." That sentence lingered in my mind long after the conversation ended. I remember driving home through quiet suburban neighborhoods outside Naperville that evening. Children were finishing Little League baseball practice beneath bright field lights while parents folded lawn chairs and carried coolers toward their cars. Life looked so ordinary outside my windshield, while inside my head questions kept multiplying. Months later I resigned. I didn't accuse anyone. I didn't argue. I simply started my own consulting business. The first year tested everything I had. Some weeks I celebrated landing one new client. Other weeks I stared at spreadsheets wondering how many more months my savings could carry me. Slowly, patiently, referrals grew. Clients appreciated honesty. Funny how revolutionary simple honesty can seem. Then Richard's review appeared. At first I tried reporting it through the website. Nothing happened. I submitted proof that Richard had never hired my company. The platform responded that it couldn't determine whether the review violated policy. Potential clients kept disappearing. One emailed me directly. "I wanted to work with you, but the fraud accusation worried us." I couldn't even blame them. Words online leave fingerprints that linger long after they're disproven. Friends suggested ignoring it. "It'll fade." Except it wasn't fading. Richard created other anonymous-looking accounts that echoed the same accusations. Different usernames. Same writing style. Same phrases he used in meetings years earlier. My attorney recognized it immediately. "These aren't customer reviews. They're targeted." She drafted a legal notice demanding immediate removal, preservation of evidence, and compensation for reputational harm. I remember signing the papers with surprisingly steady hands. Fear had quietly transformed into determination somewhere along the way. Richard responded 3 days later. Not with an apology. With another review. This one claimed I had stolen confidential methods from his company. That was when my attorney smiled. "Interesting." "What?" "He just made several factual claims." "So?" "Claims require evidence." Discovery began after we filed suit. Emails. Internal policies. Marketing records. Everything. Richard's attorneys fought aggressively against producing company documents, insisting they were irrelevant. The judge disagreed. Weeks passed. Then something unexpected happened. A former coworker called me. "Melissa." She sounded nervous. "I've been thinking about contacting you for months." "What happened?" "I saved copies." "Copies of what?" She lowered her voice. "The billing reports." I sat perfectly still. "You remember those invoices you questioned?" "Yes." "It wasn't one client." She paused. It was hundreds. Melissa explained that inflated invoices had become routine after I left. Hours never worked. Research never performed. Duplicate consulting charges hidden beneath complicated descriptions. Employees who questioned anything either quit or were pushed out. I couldn't keep pretending, she whispered. She handed everything to investigators after receiving a subpoena. The lawsuit I filed over a fake review suddenly uncovered something much larger than either of us expected. My case attracted attention from state regulators once financial records surfaced during discovery. Investigators requested additional documents. Then more. Then interviews. Richard still insisted it was all coincidence. Until search warrants were executed at his company's headquarters. I watched local news one evening while folding laundry. There was his office building. Reporters outside. The same glass entrance where I'd walked every morning for years. The headline mentioned allegations of fraudulent billing practices affecting multiple corporate clients. I stared at the screen without speaking. Not because I felt victorious. Because I remembered every moment I doubted myself. Every night wondering whether leaving had been foolish. Every morning convincing myself integrity still mattered. Richard called me exactly once after the investigation became public. I hope you're happy. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered. I didn't investigate your company. You started this. No. I took a slow breath. You wrote the review. Silence. Then the line disconnected. The twist arrived during mediation. Richard admitted privately that he'd never expected me to fight back. He believed a negative review would scare away enough clients to force me out of business. Just as he'd intimidated competitors before. He had targeted others. Most stayed quiet. Some closed their businesses entirely. His confidence had never come from being right. It came from assuming nobody would challenge him. The defamation claim settled shortly afterward. He publicly retracted every false statement, compensated my business for documented losses, and agreed never to mention me again. But that settlement became almost irrelevant compared to what followed. The regulatory investigation expanded. Former clients joined together. More employees came forward. Patterns emerged that stretched back years. The company Richard had spent decades building became the subject of widespread scrutiny because one dishonest review had prompted someone to look a little closer. Tonight, another quiet kitchen. Another cup of coffee growing cold beside me. Another 3 a.m. when sleep feels less important than reflection. The refrigerator hums softly, filling the silence with a sound I've somehow come to find comforting. Outside, the neighborhood rests peacefully beneath streetlights. Inside, I think about fear. How easily it convinces us to stay silent. How often it whispers that powerful people always win. I used to believe protecting my reputation meant avoiding conflict. Now I know protecting it sometimes means standing up. Even when your voice shakes. Richard called me a fraud because he assumed labels become truth if repeated often enough. They don't. Facts outlast accusations. Integrity outlasts intimidation. As dawn slowly brightens the sky beyond my window, I realize something that never crossed my mind during those endless sleepless nights. I didn't save my business by proving him wrong. I saved it by refusing to let someone else's lie become the story of my life. The morning sun finally slips across my kitchen floor, replacing the pale glow from the refrigerator with warm daylight. For the first time in a very long while, I don't feel like I'm running from my past. I'm walking toward a future built on something no false review could ever erase. The truth. If this story touched you or reminded you that the truth always has value, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us share more meaningful stories with people who need them most. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.